See, I lived through hard times before. Like people talking about these as hard times. Hard times was way back. They didn't even have a year for it, just called it hard times.
It's hard to imagine this is how 2020 started.
Chinese health authorities are still working to identify the virus behind a pneumonia outbreak in the central city of Wuhan.
Get ready. You're about to get shut down. It's complete absurdity. I didn't think it was real.
I can't believe this whole thing started because some guy fucked a bat. I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
Corona was happening. Like, it was weird at the airport.
The declaration of emergency.
State of emergency.
Everything was fine and dandy, and then the pandemic hit.
Ladies, you guys want to hear any jokes about corona?
We genuinely thought that this was going to be a temporary thing.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Is this actually going to happen? How we're going to stay closed, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
The shutdowns were happening in a 48-hour notice. They tell us on a Thursday we were done for the weekend.
This is truly an unprecedented situation.
This virus doesn't discriminate. It attacks everyone.
Right at that moment, I knew the pandemic was a problem.
Stand-up comedy's taken away, and then everything exists in a digital space. And I was checking the news all the time, too.
The coronavirus has changed life as we know it across America.
Hey, the corona bat. He's the new AIDS monkey.
The NCAA tournament has been canceled.
The White House Coronavirus Task Force tells people to avoid bars, restaurants, and groups of more than 10 people.
Illinois and Ohio closing all bars and restaurants beginning tonight.
When the pandemic started, all that went away.
Louisiana forced all bars to close over coronavirus fear.
Now, all you'll find is empty chairs and a closed sign. Comedy clubs and the comedians around the world are hurting as the crowds stay home because of coronavirus.
It was a moment of clarity to say, hey, you know what? You only live once. If you got something that you're interested in, you might as well give it a shot and see what happens. And so for me, it was comedy.
All this was created in like 2 weeks. So if you think it sucks, it's okay. I like it.
You have people like Joe Rogan who moved here, and then you have other people like Brian Redband who came and moved here from LA too, and you have tons of these comedians who are moving and actually coming to Austin.
I toured a lot, and I never felt like I had to censor myself at a Texas audience. Like any of the jokes that I was like, oh, I better not do this joke, always I did in Texas. And I've been trying to find a way out of Los Angeles actually for a while. And I don't know what made Joe gravitate towards Texas more, but one day he's like, you know what, I'm done, I'm ready to move to Austin. I was like, thank you, thank you.
I went back to my MBA program, and then I just tried stand-up for the first time. A bunch of my classmates just urged me to try it. It was just nice to be a part of that, and it's just something that I never wanted to leave. And a year later, I started producing my own shows. Fast forward 14 years later, I've set up shows in 21 different states now.
Soul Joel's a comedy tycoon. That's how you know the world's a little weird.
I came on when he opened his own club as a special events coordinator. I spent 7 years in the military. Comedy and comedians, I feel that same brotherhood. I feel that same connection. Like, it's not the guns and the battle that they go into, but when they go on stage, I mean, that's their battle.
We took over the New York Comedy Club, 6 years ago. For us, our number one thing is to have these great relationships with comedians, and we feel a real sense of responsibility to the comedy community here in New York. And I don't think a comedy club owner is just someone who owns a comedy club. A comedy club owner is someone who is a creator themselves.
I was born in India. I did my high school in Singapore. I moved here to go to college. And Des Moines was sort of, for lack of a better term, still has some issues with diversity. And I felt like for this city to grow and this community to accept alternative points of view, what better way to be presented with those in a way that's making you laugh as opposed to in your face, you know?
Most of our shows were improv, mostly local-based. We had some touring comics coming through, but we wanted to focus on the local aspect of what Nashville had to offer.
My grandfather was funny. My dad was funny. Actually, my mom's actually funny. You know, we don't tell her she's funny, but she's funny. So when I say it's a family-owned business, I can look over to the wall and say that my one brother painted this. My dad built this. It's really cool to know that we were just all involved as a family.
I think that comedy is very important. I think that it changes people's perception of things. Like, you can hear something and then disagree with it and then hear a comedian explain it, and then you're like, oh, that's a funny take on it that I would never have thought about.
When I hear somebody with a funny laugh, then I start laughing, and then the whole place starts laughing. It's just a great feeling.
It's really hard to get improv houses in Chicago. We had done it. We had figured it out.
After 14 years of being in the business, I finally had a staff, got a big boy bills, like a rent.
We opened up in January and went 17 straight sold-out weekends.
Early 2020, we were selling out most of our weekend shows, and then COVID hit.
And then the pandemic hit.
The pandemic hit.
We were shut down.
I was doing shows in Vegas, and I flew from Vegas to New York, and I was in New York right before New York shut down. And then I was like, I gotta get out of here, I'll get stuck here. And I was living in LA, so I took a red eye, but it was like Corona was happening. Like, it was weird at the airport.
Just like everybody, you kind of don't believe it. You're like, oh, is this actually gonna happen? We're gonna stay closed, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
March 7th, I had a big comedy show here in Austin, and we were expecting 300 people, right? Like a week or two before is when COVID hit. So it really took our show and knocked it down. We had about 100, 110 people there. And right at that moment, I knew the pandemic was a problem.
I've been a hustler my whole life, and all I could think of is we're on the river. On the other side of the Schuylkill River is Chester County. They didn't get shut down until a week later. So I was like, all right, where are we gonna pop up?
I just wasn't anticipating a full closure. That was not something that I don't know that anyone was like planning for.
The number one thing for us was just to communicate to the staff, just to kind of assure everybody that, you know, our goal was to obviously open up soon.
Everyone's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? This is a pandemic, and myself included. I didn't even want to be open. I was too afraid, you know? It's something new. You don't know nothing about it.
It didn't really hit us until midsummer of when all the different phases of the reopening kept getting pushed back. And then our phase was just pushed back indefinitely. Because then you're just like, all right, like, you know, how are we gonna survive? How are we gonna get revenue? How are we gonna navigate through all this?
And it's terrible. It feels awful. You know, you sacrifice a lot of personal life and everything to get involved in comedy because, you know, you're working nights, you're doing, you know, 70 hours a week, and then it's gone. All my staff is out of a job, all the comedians are out of jobs, and it's like trying to figure that out. It's really difficult.
We're not getting proper guidelines from our lawmakers. The city has not helped us. The state has not helped us.
Personally, there was a rough patch when I was closed down, but there's other entertainment venues around me that weren't shut down because the shutdowns were applied kind of like willy-nilly. And so, like, I give you an example, like, I'm supposed to stay shut down or socially distanced, but then they had, like, Disney on Ice in an arena. And, like, that's the part that really started to wear on me a little bit, and it was hard to stay positive during those times, because if everything was shut down, I would have shut down and known there was an end to it. We'll get through this together.
It breaks my heart when I get email after email and phone call after phone call, even after them looking at our website and seeing that it says we are temporarily closed. And I still hear people calling, you know, to see, are you open? Are you open? So to see all of these people that cannot come out and enjoy a night, a lot of people need it. A lot of people have a lot of problems in their lives, and this is an outlet to have fun, have some laughs for the night, you know, just relieve stress, whatever. And to see people saying, "You're closed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, we're closed." I don't understand the closure of the comedy club when our room is set up enough where we can social distance. And when we were open to even at 25 people, we went by all the guidelines. We did temperature checks. We did sanitizing of the hands. We sanitation for the tables, just everything.
Some of the things I'm doing right now are still more stringent than what the state is requiring me to do. And that's why people come here, because they value that.
I was like, holy shit, I've been training for this. Like, I'm very practiced at sitting inside and doing nothing all day. This is like, I'm the fucking chosen one, all right? Like,
I can sell 6 more tickets tonight, and we don't, because I can't put 2 people who don't know each other at the same table. Even if they don't care, we still don't do it. I think that's the hard part, when you know you're making a choice between doing what's right and paying the bills. And that really questions who you are as a person sometimes, man. And it's like, that's a hard part.
And you go to a big box store and everyone's out, no masks, no nothing, half on, half off. And here, I'm abiding by the rules and I'm being punished for it. Just don't think it's fair.
When the thing hit, you know, our whole thing was, look, we'll just ride out for a few weeks. You know, if anything, use this as like a nice little break. But then once it really became like more of like a long-term thing, then, you know, we really had to start putting ourselves in the mindset of, you know, how are we really going to generate like real revenue?
People get complacent. They get complacent. And that's because they're in a safe situation, things aren't changing, and unpredictable. Once you get put in a situation like this, and we're all in it, you know, it's not like it's necessarily affecting just a couple, we're all sort of in the same boat here. And that in the past, I've had these situations, and I have just wasted a ton of time lamenting on the loss. And this is probably like the 10th time it's happened in my life. I took 0 time, and it was all about, all right, what were we unable to do before?
The good thing about it is the first time we shut down, it was almost like how many new businesses have the opportunity to just randomly shut their doors and fix things that are wrong.
How's your quarantine going? Good quarantine so far? No? Sure.
I looked at it as like, hey, it's an opportunity. So we fixed our sound. We fixed certain elements about how the room was set up, because when you're just flying by the seat of your pants, you don't have the opportunity to be like, oh, no, let's not sell tickets this weekend. Let's completely shut down and fix stuff. You can't do that. And we had the opportunity to do that.
each one had probably roughly 200 milligrams of THC. Okay, yeah, we've got some fellow scientists in the room here. Some people are sitting there going like, oh, no. That's too much weed. Like, yeah, you're right.
It's easy to fix things when you have money to throw at it, right? But when you're open for 3 months and you put everything, your entire personal savings into opening the place, you're hoping to build a little nest egg before you start fixing stuff. But when you shut down 3 months in, you still owe the bank money, you have 0 savings left, you're kind of like, what can I fix that's free?
You go with what you know works, and then you get comfortable, and you're scared to try to change and adapt and move forward. You know, it's pretty easy to get stuck in one mode. This worked forever, let's keep it this way. And then when we closed, the first thing I did was, okay, we need to start selling merchandise, because I was looking for green shoots, something open where we could try to make some money and move forward.
There's 2 camps with the pandemic. There's like, hey, this is some time off. I can finally breathe and stretch my legs and learn to play the piano or start crocheting. And then some people are like, this is terrifying. I worry about the people in the first camp, because I'm like, if everything's not given you on a silver platter, how bad do you want it?
The kick that kept coming is every week, just the amount of refunds going out the door was just tough, because now you're writing checks out the door of money you've already collected. So that was a tough hit.
The first 3 months of this was terrible, and it was horrible. Like in April, I probably shouldn't say this on record, but I'm going to, my bank account got down to $300.
I was never scared, because I know that sometimes out of the darkest times come the most beautiful art.
Somebody put it well, I don't know who said this, but it said, the hell gig is the new normal. Like in 2018, if you would have been like, there's a barn with a skylight and a hay barrel you stand on for a stage, you'd be like, yeah, but it pays $11. You'd be like, what are you kidding? But it's 3 hours away, And now you're like, hey, there's a hay bale? $11. Who's driving?
Part of the mind screw was stand-up comedy's taken away, and then everything exists in a digital space. And I was checking the news all the time, too. So all of a sudden, I'm on the computer more than ever, and then it's like the TikTok and Twitter and all of the social media people, now we're always playing in their arena, where it used to be, yeah, maybe you're like a YouTube celebrity, but then when you come to the stand-up comedy club, woof! So then it switched to being like, hey, stand-up comedians, it's not that easy to make YouTube videos. Now I'm getting back in bed because I'm depressed. No one gets back in bed on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. because they're winning too hard. Because I'm at home trying to TikTok, like, this is brutal. So then it gave me so much respect for people that just do social media stuff, too.
Doing this thing called exposure therapy. That's where you face your fears. Scared of heights, take a hot air balloon. Scared of drowning, takes you in the ocean. So he said, what are you scared of, Mark? I said, I'm claustrophobic and scared of intimacy. So he took me in a little closet and fucked me. I put out a special in May of last year. So kind of when the pandemic was new and still weird, like what's going on? Are we gonna die? What's gonna happen? And that was all a failure. It was all like, no, Netflix wouldn't buy it, HBO wouldn't buy it. So we're like, put it on YouTube. That's the last ditch effort. And I'm so glad it's on YouTube now. I own it. I can do whatever I want to it. It's all mine, baby. These sticky-fingered suits can't touch it. Any pedophiles here? I mean, statistically, it's got to be 2, right? Then you realize, okay, this is helping my YouTube channel. Nobody else is putting out stuff. TV's kind of done. You can't go on Conan. You can't go on The Tonight Show. So, yeah, fuck it. Let's go all in on YouTube. And I think that's the move. Now it's you got to build your own thing. Start a podcast, promoting, get on Instagram, do a live, do a TikTok. I went to the Women's March in Manhattan. That was cool. Although I got to say, I haven't heard the word pussy yelled that much since that time I rollerbladed to high school. So yeah, you got to promote your own shit now. And I feel like every comic who's still pushing it became their own business a little more. It used to be like, oh, I got to sell this show. And now it's like, I got to get views on my channel and subscriptions.
I would describe the last year of comedy, personally, as very lucrative.
God dang it! Your booty like 2 planets.
Hosting HQ Tribute. Yeah. Doing that, going to the studio against the orders of the governor.
Everyone's trying to make do during this time, right? Like, comedians need stage time, they need to get in front of it. So they're doing the virtual shows, they're doing the live streaming shows, they're doing the drive-in shows. But if they have an opportunity to do something that's safe and indoors or outdoors that's more in front of a live audience, they'll take advantage of that as well.
Our mentality in this whole thing was very simple. It was like, if we don't do something, if we don't continue to create, then we're a bunch of phonies. Because we've always prided ourselves on making stuff happen. And we care about the comedians, we care about our staff, we've always looked out for them, we've always tried to connect them with the right people to further their career. We have not skipped a beat.
Last year, in one word, you adapt. You had to see which way the wind was blowing because you couldn't go in a room with a crowd, so you had to get creative.
We've done stream shows, we've done virtual shows, Zoom shows, roof shows, we've done sidewalk shows. We've done every show that you can think of.
I did the park shows, I did the outdoor shows, the rooftop. So yeah, you just had to go with the flow and just try to stay relevant. That was the key. We got 3 shows in the park. This is the first one. They're all in Central Park. So we're gonna do this one. We're gonna run to the other one on 79th and whatever. Then we're gonna do that one and come back and close the third one out, which is back here. This is comedy now. It's in a park. There's no microphone. You're basically just a hobo screaming to strangers in the park.
I had a moment with the park shows where it was like this weird thing where I was like, I don't want anyone to see me.
I can't believe this whole thing started because some guy fucked a bat. I feel like a woman in an arranged marriage. You know, I didn't choose this. I gotta cover my face, and if I say my opinion, I get yelled at. All right. I can't tell if I'm bombing or if I'm in the park. We'll say both. That was brutal. I mean, A, you're outdoors, you have no microphone, there's no ceiling, there's music, That was brutal. That was the first one. Let's go to the other one. Hey, career low point.
So when I did that park show, I literally was like crouching down in the audience because it was just this weird thing. It's like, yeah, you need people there to see you, but I didn't want anyone that would hold me accountable or actually know me to see me too. But I did those park shows too.
Let's go do that last show. Yeah, black people got hit really hard by COVID, which shocks me because they usually handle illness so well. They're strong people. I mean, look at Magic Johnson. He's still going, right? Hell, he beat Kobe. That joke, like him, didn't land.
But I start being like, I went to grad school. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. That is when I'm having some problems. But then after each park show, I would be happy I did it and then want to do another one.
That's got to be a record. 3 shows in one park, yelling at strangers, no microphone. Everything was against us, but comedy lives. We got to keep doing it. We got to keep going. You got to make it work. I hate myself. I'll see you in hell. Kanye 2020.
Y'all, this next comedian, y'all, one of my good friends. He funny as fuck, man. And y'all gonna have a good time. Y'all, please give it up for my homie, Matt Richards.
What's up, motherfuckers on the roof? This is dumb. Why are we doing this? I was doing park shows and basically wherever people would listen. We were doing sidewalk shows up in Times Square, fucking rooftop shows here and another rooftop and another rooftop. This is gonna sound petty as fuck. I've been judging masks. That's my new favorite pastime. Judging people's masks. So we've been in a pandemic for like a year now, so if you're still wearing one of them first day of Corona surgical blue shits, you are a peasant! I'm gonna start a GoFundMe for you broke ass. Why? You still wearing this shit? You have plenty of time to get something customized, you know? With a message, some cheetah print or some shit. It's cool. Don't walk around looking like extras from Grey's Anatomy.
As soon as things started to unfold with COVID, we got to a point where I just said, I talked to a friend of mine that we already produced a live comedy show with called In the Meantime. It's a comedy game show. So it actually had like 3 comedians come on there, create memes. When COVID hit and the pandemic and we couldn't do anything live in person, I was like, you know what, we could probably do this through Zoom. And so that's what we did.
Your butt napkins, my lord. It's so good. I want it.
So it was about a 20-day turnaround from the first show that we did during COVID to doing the online show. The overall feedback was fantastic. Like, people watched it. We got a couple thousand views on it. We streamed it on Facebook and on YouTube. And then we had a few people just reach out and say, hey, you know what? I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. Can we help?
McLaren's Holy Water, we lost that sponsorship. That was a tough one. That was a tough loss.
Right when pandemic started, I already knew that TikTok was kind of like happening. And I was like, I might as well just join. I want to see what this is all about. Because other comics were like, hey, you should really do this.
Isn't it weird that we used to have milkmen? Like, there was a time period where these guys would come to your house and then deliver milk, and then you would have sex with them.
And I like that you could, the editing in there, so you can kind of like make mini sketches.
Here, baby, try this.
Oh.
I feel like more people are seeing me this way.
It's really good.
Than they would doing a show. So it made me reevaluate my life a little bit of like, should I be doing as many shows in New York, or should I be focusing on reaching a broader audience by doing stuff online?
I think the hardest thing about doing your taxes is getting everything together and then organizing it so you can just put it in an envelope and then mail it to your dad so he can do it for you. It's like, who has the time for that? So I'm thinking about going to H&R Block and then see if they'll mail it to my dad for me.
Really, the positive that comes out of all of this is that you've got to make the best out of this situation. And the person who's perfect for this is Andrew Schultz, who, you know, did the quarantine the best.
NBC, you're worried we're gonna watch an episode of SNL from 20 years ago? We didn't watch the one from Saturday, and they took down an episode of Golden Girls for mud masks.
He created the best and the funniest content. And I think something like what he did works really, really well, which is telling jokes and you're talking. It's kind of like he's reporting news, but he's putting in, it's like a monologue, and he just has pictures there. And so that helps from a production standpoint.
BoJack was voiced by Will Arnett, not an actual horse, man.
I like to do sketches, and I started like about a year ago a film festival called the At Home Film Festival, and it was really just so I had a goal every month to create a sketch or a film.
Stephanie's at the bridge. She's talking to a boy. We're going down there to embarrass her. Let's figure something out. I'm like, all right, I'll come with you. I pick up my bandana and I put it in my pants. I'll be like, I'll pretend I'll have a dick.
So I try to put out that once a month, and so I like to focus more on that. I'd like to think about creating short films and submitting them into festivals.
Why do you have a bulge in your pants right now? And I'm like, it's just a fucking bandana. I pull the bandana out, and this big dog turd flies out. Because when I picked up my bandana, I had no idea that I just picked up a huge mound of shit and put it in my pants.
What we did with the online comedy shows, they were like variety shows, they were game shows, they were variations, they maybe were podcasts or storytelling.
Because you're the thief.
Well, come on now. You know, we all got to share, you know.
Yeah, that's what a thief would say.
And I think all of those innovations, those type of shows will stick around, and you'll see more and more people do that.
You know, I didn't think a mullet man would get onto the geek show, but I really appreciate you bringing me on.
We want to bring diversity to the show, so just different types of white people, you know? That's what we try to do out here.
One thing I started with the pandemic early on, because I mean, I used to be at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles every single day. I probably take one day a week off. I didn't perform every day, but I hung out every day, talked to other comics, talked to other people, thought of new jokes and new ideas. And when the pandemic started, all that went away. So I was like, wait a second, I need to still write. I need to still, you know, bounce ideas back and forth with people. So I started this thing called Virtual Red Band. Did you guys like the new opening? I got really stoned today, which is me doing virtual reality and as a character, and I meet up with a bunch of people as characters in the game, and it's kind of like a chat room where you're a character, and you could go to a comedy club in this virtual reality.
This place is nice. I like this.
You could go to all these different places, and I started doing shows, not like advertising I'm doing a comedy show in virtual reality, but just doing it to keep my reflexes and keep my, you know, jokes in my head going and adding on to them. And I started doing that about 5 days a week, kind of overtaking what I used to do at the Comedy Store. And I don't know if that's the next thing, but there's something to it where, you know, at one point I had like 50 people in a room and I was doing stand-up comedy in front of people. And I was like, this is just like a show. I'm writing stuff, people are laughing, I could see them, I could see somebody going in the other room. This is the closest thing to being in a comedy club.
That's one of my oldest jokes I've ever wrote.
Wasn't that yesterday?
And it's all based off 100% truth, by the way. All 100% true.
You could be having like a tug of war. That's what makes good comedy.
You start to take what you can get, and the outdoor shows stunk. But again, there's a couple of nut jobs out there who are so innovative. They figure out a way, how do we make them better? Put a tent up. Let's go under that oak tree. Let's go on the roof. So that's what we all did. We're like, I guess this is the new normal, and that's how bad comics need to perform. And also comedy is like a muscle, so if you stop, you lose it, so that's scary. Wow, I think I actually just heard a cricket. How about that?
During the pandemic, it just kind of spread that we're doing the best shows.
I do want to thank Joel for the preparation he did. You know, I do love that, like, you know, he set up these tiki torches for when it gets... No, don't clap. I'm about to make fun of him.
You know, as a comic, I'm used to barking people, hey, come on in here, folks. I can't sell a ticket to save my life. So you're like, maybe people don't really like comedy. I mean, they like Seinfeld or Kevin Hart. How about that Fauci? He's a bummer, huh? I get he's got a hard job, but Fauci's like a COVID groundhog, you know? Every time I see him on TV, I'm like, shit, another 6 weeks of pandemic. But like, do they like comedy enough to come see my nobody ass? But they did, and that was really kind of a nice, flattering moment. Everybody's getting on board, you know? They realize this is what it is, and we got to make the most of it. And then they're like, all right, I guess we're outdoor shows. People are showing up, like shit was selling out. But then you're like, oh, the winter's coming. I didn't even think about that part. So now we got to get heat lamps, and now we got to get an indoor thing with a tent and all that.
Can't thank you guys enough. You guys kept us going all winter long, and people are like, are you going back inside? Fuck no, we made it through the winter. We're staying out here. So This song cost $53,000. We raised 13 grand due to patrons sitting in this audience right now, and 14 grand thanks to our sponsors on the stage. Thank you guys so much. Give it up for yourselves for supporting us and keeping this going all winter long.
We had a meeting with our landlord to create the outside amphitheater. And from there on in, we just made it our mission to create these outdoor shows.
Whew. It's like being in the Florida Keys.
The audiences are all trained now to whether it was Jessica Kirson or Dave Attell, Louis C.K., Joe List, Mark Norman.
So make some fucking noise. Seth Lavin, James Carpenter.
They were having fun. And these comics just knew to come out to have a good show. So the comics, of course, they want to do this to make money. But at the end of the day, they're doing it to have fun, too. Like, they don't want to just go through the motions. They want to have fun. And people heard that, you know, Soul Joel Sandpit down here in Royersford was the place to be.
Second time we shut down, we realized that we can't really book out because the shutdowns were happening in a 48-hour notice. They tell us on a Thursday we were done for the weekend. We had to cancel shows, refund tickets. And so I stopped booking out-of-town talent because I was burning bridges. Because they didn't understand it's not me, it's the government of Iowa telling me I can't be open on a Thursday and you were booked for Saturday. And chances are if you're from out of town, you're well on your way here. And that sort of fueled the ability to do something which we haven't done before, which is we've survived completely on local talent.
Beards are like wizened and respected. You know, goatees command no respect at all. Like if Jesus had just a goatee, no one would have listened to him at all. He could have been walking on water. They would have been like, of course he likes magic, douchebag.
So that was cool to know that that was viable, and it's also forced local talent to up their game. So what used to be a feature local person is now a headliner local person. They're working a lot harder to get that 30 minutes, and it's kind of cool.
Like, do you want a jacket? You're like, yeah, but I'm not even gonna put it on. I'm gonna put it next to me like the fucking boyfriend I abuse, wherever he is. He's at home, he's gotta be fucking fermenting the kombucha or whatever, so it's ready to eat. Yeah, you guys laughed hard at that. I didn't know kombucha had made it to Des Moines yet. That's fantastic.
As soon as things started to shut down, I was looking at what else can I do? What else can I do in terms of shows? I started doing Zoom shows. And don't get me wrong, they're tough, very tough. So people shut off their microphone, they shut off their video. I might as well be yelling in a mirror. It's complete absurdity, but some of them have been really helpful. They pay the bills. Some of them are like nice shows, corporate shows. I've done that, Zoom shows. So it's whatever, wherever, however.
Check. 50 minutes, 5-0, 50 minutes. So we gotta be up.
So I bring all my cameras, my switcher, my computer, and a soundboard, hook all that up, and you got a live show.
Okay, well, how long is this gonna last? We need to make some revenue. Let's get the ball rolling. Okay, so we closed in October, like the middle of October, and we did the first one on New Year's Eve.
3, 2, 1. We are up.
We stream out to YouTube, and we stream a Zoom call in. Because, there's that disconnect between the stage and the audience. So what HBO did, and really all of these big companies too, WWE is doing this, they have all the screens everywhere so people can see, or the players or whoever's on stage can see, so they feel comfortable. And then the people in the Zoom call, we stream the live feed directly to the Zoom call in our call window, so they can see what's going on here, so there's zero lag. So yeah, that's kind of how you solve the interactivity problem.
Welcome. Who is that? We got Zara, Scott, Sarah.
Yeah.
Amen. Welcome. Rico, Ricardo, David, Ashley, David.
You need a reaction for comedy, and if you don't have that reaction, it messes up timing, it messes up, your confidence, a lot of things like that. So then when we brought in the Zoom aspect, we put it on a TV, we pump it through the room so you can hear the laughs through the speaker.
Oh, hey, Zoom people, how you guys doing? All right. Good.
You have at least an audience that's pretty big, and then we're doing this VIP that can actually just partake in the show.
I am a teacher, by the way. Yay, give it up for that. I am a teacher during this pandemic.
Versus not doing anything. If you're on the YouTube, then you're just watching the show.
If somebody asks any questions, do you want us to use the raise your hand feature, or do you want us to actually just like raise our hand, or what? Just talk.
Just if I was up there, I was like, anybody got a fucked up car? Yeah, my man Rico got a fucked up. You know what I'm saying? So it's your audience. So treat it like that.
First, I was against it because in my mind it was just like it's not real. It's not like an audience reaction. And then it clicked in my mind where it was like, you know what? I can get on Instagram and talking to my camera and be funny. I got to take that same approach, and I have thoughts that I need to get out. So I set my camera up and I went live on Instagram, turned my phone around so I couldn't see the comments, and I just start performing for 30 minutes for like 3 weeks in a row every Friday, just to get these ideas and these thoughts out.
He was on a terrible ass basketball team, and then he found out he was a werewolf, and then he scratched the motherfucker in the chest, and they stopped fucking with him. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't really remember the plot of the movie, but it was some basketball involved, and he was a werewolf.
Because the idea was like, I just need to be funny, and it shouldn't be dependent on an audience or not. I should be able to talk in a vacuum, and if someone's watching it, they should be able to laugh at it. So it was definitely a trial by fire in terms of testing myself as a comedian, but also accepting that this may be the new norm moving forward.
Hey, welcome to Laugh More Live. Give it up for yourselves for coming out. If you're at home, go ahead and clap. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and clap for yourselves for coming out to Laugh More Live. Yes, I'm your host, Calvin Evans. We have an amazing show.
I think it opened people's eyes. You know, I think a lot of people that own clubs and run clubs kind of have that old school mentality of it's a live show versus a live stream show.
This works, I guess, is kind of the baseline, which is what you want. It's not perfect because it's not you in a room with a bunch of other people drinking and eating and watching stand-up, but it is truly the next best thing.
I think there's going to be a new appreciation for live performance too, because people just want to be like out and around other people. Ironically, since being around other people is what kind of got us all in this situation.
We made enough just to break even and pay our bills, and a lady, she walked up to me and she just handed me $100. And I was like, well, what's this for? She's like, you're hurting right now. I see what you're doing, and you're trying to bring laughter to people, and these people need it during the pandemic. And so many people had shared that with us, that these shows brought them through this quarantine and the pandemic. But that was another sign from the universe that I'm like, oh, it's only $100, but it was more of a symbol that everything's gonna be okay. And that $100 was the $100 that I made for that night.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you through the showroom here and show you a little bit about what we've done here.
When people walked in here for the first time, they were like, wow, I can't even describe the energy. People, because I think they were cooped up in their houses for so long and did not see other people, they walked into something that was new and was like, wow, you did this? Thought you were supposed to be home. You were supposed to be quarantining. Well, we were here by ourselves, we're family. Wanted to try to up the look a little bit. I painted the walls, they were brick color, wanted something nice and fresh and bright, and I hired a graphic designer to do some of the caricatures on the wall, kind of like a bobblehead look, something a little bit different. It was a big shock to people when they walked in. And the feedback from day one, since we opened in February to now, has been phenomenal. We'll be doing a green room over here. We're gonna be putting a door here. And once the door is in, the comics will then come out and they will enter up on the stage. We have a couple stairs there. They'll get up on the stage. They don't have to come from the back of the room. They'll have their own little spot back there. They'll have the TV going, showing when they have to come on. They have a little dressing room. It'll just be their own little space instead of them having to use my office. Every customer that walks in, every comic that walks in, everybody has something very positive to say.
What was really kind of refreshing, you know, if you were to take away anything from this whole experience, is that we were getting audiences that were just so grateful, you know, so you can really take risks. You know, I think comedy got to a point where everything was so perfect.
I thought I wanted a baby, though, recently, but then I had to carry around an umbrella all day while it wasn't raining.
It really was. You go to a comedy club in New York City, most clubs are pumping on a random Wednesday night. I remember a few months before the pandemic, on a Monday night, we had Andrew Schultz, Bill Burr, Joe DeRosa, Chris DiStefano, Mark Norman. I mean, that was one lineup. And I think people were getting spoiled. And so what happened now was there was just this ultimate gratitude, like even trying something like a drive-in show, you know, which is so crazy when you think about it. And people are honking their horns for laughter. People were just appreciative of the effort, you know, of just like, hey, you know, we needed this. We needed to have some sort of release.
We had a naming rights campaign, so if you look around the theater, we've got plaques everywhere now. People bought everything from the columns to the bar to the wall. So that was a successful campaign.
Quarantined the entire time with my girlfriend, so you'll know what that means, right? Single as fuck! Oh, she dumped the shit out of me, yeah?
Doing comedy in the winter on a roof, the fact that people are even showing up gives me so much hope for a post-COVID world. We are not deemed essential by the city, but it just shows how essential comedy is. If people are willing to brave a fucking pandemic to laugh, that's powerful.
I don't know if this is racist, but it's probably totally racist. I can't come home with a bag of anything because somebody in my building will assume I'm Uber Eats. It's fucked up. Don't matter what's in the bag. I'm in the elevator, somebody's like, is that for 15F? I'm like, no, motherfucker, this is mine.
You got to think people who come out now, you know, it's all safe. We wear the mask and everything. But people who come out now want to see comedy. Like, they want to see comedy before, like, oh, we'll go to a show. And now it's like, let's risk our lives and see this show. So you know they want to be there.
My favorite animal right now is the peacock. I like that one. You know what I love about it? It's got like these beautiful feathers up in front, and then when you go around the back, it's just a gaping asshole back there. Didn't bother doing anything to the back. You're like, oh, you didn't think people were gonna go back behind there like that? Everyone was so appreciative to be doing something besides staying at home that I felt like the audiences were a lot nicer. I didn't even have to deal with any hecklers. Everyone was pleasant. This is going great, guys. I'm really happy with this. And so my ego wasn't wrapped up in like, is somebody gonna book me this month at the club? I could just do my shows wherever, and like people were always putting on shows, and I felt like I was getting booked all the time. So I felt good about it. I saw a woman walking and crying the other day, and I was like, that's so New York. Just to be like, I don't have time to sit down and cry.
When I say New York has really shown their mettle throughout this whole thing, it has nothing to do with our policymakers, has nothing to do with the people who run this city. It's the people who make the city up. And the people who come to these shows, man, they've been freaking rock stars. We have people who show up here with their own heaters. It's BYOB. They're bringing like cheese plates with them, like the grit. Like we had a show, it was like 8 degrees and windy. And we're like, oh, we're gonna have to cancel the show. And people showed up. They want to be here.
We could have did this shit on Zoom. I could have changed the virtual backgrounds and some warm shit. Let's do jokes.
They know what they're getting into. If you come to a rooftop show in the middle of January in New York City, you know it's gonna be cold. You know it might rain. Like, it really has made it feel very, very like rock and roll, man. Comedy's become dangerous again. You don't know what the hell's gonna happen.
Live comedy will always be here. I think the live show now is the unique thing because screens are everywhere. So it used to be like getting on TV and being on a screen was like some sort of marker that you made it because it was unique, it was hard to get. But now it's easier to get on a screen than it is to get on a live show, you know? To have people come out and see you is the hard thing. So live comedy's here to stay. Whether it's just stand-up, no, I don't think so. It's gonna be, you know, live podcasts, sketches, improv, whatever kind of new incarnation of comedy is gonna come.
I think the best thing to come out of the pandemic is that comedy is sort of put back in the hands of the comics. Pre-pandemic, they were definitive gatekeepers of comedy. So if you were a newer comic starting out, you'd have to jump through the hoops, get your name out there, and then, hope that a booker would fuck with you. But in this COVID world, you got a microphone, some sort of amplification system, and a public space. You could put on your own show. You could go on Zoom and reach out to people that already fuck with you. So it really forced a lot of people to pivot in a very creative way.
They said in the 30s, if you wanted to be in Hollywood, you had to learn how to act, sing, and dance. And I feel like we have to learn how to be funny, edit, and promote, and algorithms, and all this horse shit that I never thought was involved. I've opened for these older comics, and they're like, "What is this? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I got to put up a thing. I got to be in the algorithm." And they're like, "Ugh, write a joke, you dweeb." And I'm like, "It's a new world, you cunt. You don't get it."
It's nice to have a network backing you and putting in PR, but if you already have like a great social media base, you kind of don't really need that. And so getting a special on Comedy Central or Netflix, those slots are so far and few between. This is my dismount. Are you guys ready? I don't think you need crane shots for specials. You just maybe need 2 cameras and a decent sound quality. You could just put that on your own YouTube channel and try to create your own fan base and get subscribers and make some money off of YouTube ads.
I know so many comics that have pivoted to doing like the internet stuff, and it's grown their followings tremendously. In a business like ours, numbers are important, they're looked at, and so the more presence you command online, the more presence you command with fans, the more undeniable you become. So a gatekeeper has no choice. You're undeniable.
Everyone's making money on the internet. I mean, I don't even know if you can make as much money on a show as you can on the internet if you have something that hits. Now, if you have something that hits in the entertainment industry, of course, you can make a lot of money, but good luck with that. That's like winning the lotto. And so you're gonna stick around and like not do your own thing and just keep trying to get like the 3 or 4 slots where you make money, I think there's a lot of famous people who don't have as much money as you think they do right now, just because nobody's really watching produced shows unless they're massive hits and they're really good, if you've noticed. There's all types of ways to be funny now that the internet has facilitated, and live is the special one, I think. But I think you get to perform live by building your audience online, so then people come and see you live.
I think for the comic, it's definitely been an adjustment for them because they're not really seeing where the laughs are coming from. It's a little bit like they're in the blind. Where are my jokes hitting? Where are the laughs coming from? And they almost have to like have a little laugh track in their own head.
Even though we have this live component to it, for the people that's watching on YouTube, I still have to be the funniest I can be at all times, consistently, whether they react or not. So I have to, it's like you get setting levels as a performer. Like, all right, I got to turn down my expectations of the audience, turn up my performance. Versus if I'm in front of a live audience, it's even.
Trying to throw together some nameplates for everybody, so that when they go on stage, people can follow or whatever. Folks who don't want to go out, just in general, have an option now to still kind of be part of something and save a shitload of money by not buying Uber, not buying food, not buying a bunch of drinks. You can smoke weed in your house. You don't have to worry about the rules wherever you live. There's ultimate freedom with stuff like this because you're bringing it to you.
There's a lot of people like, how come I never got this? And you're like, go make it, pussy. Go try it. Go for it, So it just shows who kind of wants it. And I know people get mad at me for saying that, but it's like, now it feels even because it's just the internet and it's just a pandemic. So can't really complain anymore about not getting stuff if you're not making stuff.
More podcasts is what you're gonna see because people are they're bored, they need something to do. And that was a big uptick. I mean, like pretty much every comedian now has a podcast.
I think we're gonna go from written jokes to riffing, to be honest with you. I think everything's been stripped down of its pretense because of podcasts and the internet and people just making low budget videos. So nobody cares about the production anymore. And when you do produce something, it feels contrived, it feels overproduced.
I believe that now with how Joe did it, he changed everything by just picking up and moving to Austin.
Welcome to our polarizing studio. A lot of people don't like it here. A lot of complaints, Jamie. This is what I'm hearing.
Not a city known for comedy.
From the time I was saying, maybe I should move to Austin, to we're in Austin, in studio, it was like 2 months?
This is gonna be another big positive, is that not having to be in a large market or one of the two major coasts. You don't have to be in New York, you don't have to be in LA to still make a career of comedy.
The traditional route in stand-up is over. It was over before the pandemic, and the pandemic was like the coup de grace. It's like you don't come up getting booked at a club, and then you're in one club, you're happy, and then you get a half hour, then you do a late night set, and then you do an hour, and then you're on a sitcom. Those days are over. I mean, it's like those days are over.
P. Diddy had a quote. It was, if this global pandemic didn't bring the hustler out of you, it was never in you. And I think that resonates so strongly because it's like, yeah, you're sitting in a room by yourself with your thoughts. And if you can't think of a way to turn things in your favor, maybe this ain't for you.
The pandemic has forced everyone who's got that spark to innovate, and it's cool to see that that's recognized,
If I can think of this and find the people and partner with it and make this happen, then why not create a TV show? Why not broadcast live? This could become his own network, in a sense.
Every time you hit these emergency situations that affects everybody, wheat from the chaff, there's gonna be some business models that are weaker than others, and they should go away so that the industry can evolve. And I've seen a lot of articles and posts about how people think comedy is dead, and it's laughable to me because they're pointing to institutions that have largely stopped inventing decades ago.
The thing about the pandemic was, it's not just about putting out content and whatever, it's gaining fans and new people to meet you and get to know you. So that when the weight is lifted of the pandemic over, they'll still be with you.
If you want things to happen at your pace, and just do it yourself. And I think that's kind of what we did. Just made it happen, and made it happen for all these comics. And we provided them a great space, not only to hone their craft, but to make a living during a time where many other clubs were shut down.
He came out swinging. Joel's had that never give up attitude. If he was gonna quit, he would have done it a long time ago. He would have done it 5, 10, 12 years in. Looking back, I feel so much pride and happiness that he's flourished. And pandemic or not, I mean, he could have folded. So everybody says, like, oh, the pandemic helped you, but he really helped himself.
Comedians are probably the most adaptable, most adjustable, artists you can find. I mean, comics don't need much, man. Just give them a mic, give them an audience, and they'll do their thing.
What I've learned through this past year, stand-up comedians are kind of like roaches. Like, if we survive, I mean, there was comics doing shows on rooftops. I think they would do them in car trunks, in Wawa aisles. It was just going down. Like, we find a way to make a comedy show.
We started the Comedy Coalition, which is like a band of all the comedy club owners just to kind of come together and just to kind of make sure that we're not being forgotten as an industry. That's been a positive that's come out of this. We've, gotten to know a lot of the other comedy club owners. Comedy can be a very territorial business, I mean, everyone's kind of like fighting for the same comics and for the same, audience members and all that. But the community itself is really kind of banded together.
If you give a fuck, things happen. That's it. It's not rocket science, but every time I gotta say it, and no matter what you do, you like cooking goddamn pizzas, you make good pizzas. People are gonna like the pizza. You like putting on good comedy shows, people are gonna come to the comedy shows. That's it.
You had a pandemic. It is what it is. It is what it is. We all have to deal with it.
You have to accept where we are to move forward and embrace the future. You have to.
Sure, I could get a job at Starbucks, but I said, fuck it, let's try to go in and get creative. And that's one good thing about struggle, is it makes you kind of dig deep and pull something out of your own asshole.
maybe COVID was a blessing. Maybe not for some people, they lost family members, they lost relatives, whatever. I've lost friends too. But in other ways, maybe this was time for all of us to step back and take a look at ourselves. God has a reason for everything. What the reason was, I don't know. But all I know is it's changed me.
To have had that conversation with my dad saying we're gonna get shut down, I couldn't even imagine, but the light at the end of the tunnel was this growth, was, you know, the bigger picture and everything. We would have never happened. The pandemic put us on the map. My vision after 14 years has finally come to life.
I knew, I said, well, it only took 14 years, and 14 years in a pandemic, and here he is.
All we know is, you know, how to just fucking grind it out and roll up our sleeves. You talk to any comic, Kevin Hart, you talk to Bill Burr, the things that they remember the most is the struggle. And it's the same with us. We always feel like we're just grateful to be part of this awesome industry, and it can end any day. This is a privilege to be involved in comedy.
I'm optimistic about all this still. I don't think things will get back to normal, but I think that things are gonna be, they're gonna find their new normal. And then I'll figure out where I fit in that. It's pretty cool.
I can't always be out here to thank people for coming out here. And when they look up there and see the exit sign, at least they know that I'm thinking of them and that I appreciate them coming out and laughing with us.
All right, guys, I did it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thanks a lot. I'm Kevin Hart. You guys were great.